Okay. I'm going to edit out these intros from my videos. I'll make sure to do that after I'm done here. Which I never do. How you doing? What's up, girlfriend? Avidya, or avidya, whether it be Pali or Sanskrit, doesn't make any distinction or differentiation. Amazingly enough, people that think that they're masters of Indian metaphysics, they are completely clueless. Unfortunately so. The most clueless people, of course, are the Buddhists. There's two modalities of ignorance, but ignorance, of course, is rather superficial. We could actually call it nescience. But avidya is combined of a prefix a, meaning not, or the opposite of, or the lack thereof. Vidya. Specifically, vidya means illumination, like actual illumination. But of course, it's in reference to wisdom. So when we actually say avidya, it means no wisdom, or lack of wisdom. But this actually has two modalities. It actually has a greater modality of what is transcendent, i.e. ontological, the true being. Yeah. And then there's the conventional ignorance, which is more correct as corporeal nescience, which, by the way, in the ancient Pali is the word vijnana. But the name and meaning, which is very beautiful because in ancient Greek and ancient Pali, which has been a dead language now for over 2,000 years, this word not only means consciousness, it literally means what consciousness is metaphysically, which is which is the same prefixual as a, meaning lack thereof or lack of, jnana or gnosis. It literally means ignorance. So the same word in ancient Pali for consciousness also means ignorance, but we're actually talking about corporeal or consubstantial ignorance, i.e. ignorance of the empirical persona non grata, i.e. the psychophysical or the corporeal being, Bob, Sue, Larry. It'd be conventional ignorance. If someone looks in the mirror and they see a reflection of themselves and they go, yeah, that's me, that's who I am. And when I actually debate these people, and I don't like debating them anymore because they're so stupid, especially the Buddhists are really stupid, they just don't read doctrine. It would be kind of like if every Christian on earth not only never read the Bible, but they're like, why don't you read the Bible? No! It's like, why? What's wrong with actually reading the original source materials of... And of course, I'm not interested in religion. I'm only interested in true metaphysics. And, debating these people is foolish. But the two modalities of ignorance have to be clearly defined in that one is pre-embodiment. That pre-embodiment, of course, defines the parameters of why one would be embodied anyway. Is seeing self in what is not self. The actual false identity of seeing or wanting, both being the same ultimately from the position of metaphysics, to identify oneself as the psychophysical. So obviously when we're actually talking about ignorance, we're not talking about conventional empirical ignorance only, which is a different modality. This is consubstantial ignorance of the corporeal person, who sees and identifies with things that are not themselves, and this is the reason why suffering occurs, and it perpetuates endlessly. But there's also the primordial ignorance, which is not something different than the absolute, because this is where all religions F up, and they really F up hardcore. I mean, they really F up, is this notion of prima causa, or original sin. The original sin, Adam and Eve picked that apple of the forbidden fruit. No, from the premise of metaphysics, there is no original sin. There is no first cause. What do you mean there's no first cause? How could you have downfall without first cause? And this is, of course, answered by the most intelligent, actually the most wise people, and intelligent, but primarily the most wise people who ever lived, the Pythagoreans, the Neoplatonists, people like Plotinus, Proclus, Numenius, Syrianus. And that is the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. What is the extrinsic attribute, which is not separate from, is merely a descriptor of the parameters of what light is? What's the extrinsic attribute of light? It would be illumination, right? Now, one cannot talk about illumination without speaking about light. Light's nature, i.e. its attribute, is illumination. Illumination is said of light, right? There is no differentiation there. There is no first cause, there's no prima causa, there's no original sin. This is that the nature of light is to illuminate. And we are talking about an inseparable whole. This is also, too, the hardest core secret of ancient metaphysics that people don't get. This is also, too, the reason why the first two numbers of the Fibonacci sequence are 1 and 1. Because the Fibonacci sequence, girlfriend, goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. By the way, this is the original Trinity. Long before Judaism and Christianity, the original Trinity was monad and the Euristos Dios. Yeah, monad, 1, 1, 2, 3. This is where I actually got monad, mind, magnitude, matter, and man, i.e. ontos, the consubstantiality of matter and of chitta or nous. But we're talking about the Euristos Dios. The ancient Greeks actually called it the Euristos Dios. They actually also too called it ananke, or necessity. But necessity is a mistranslation. But that's the only English word that we have. There are a lot of ancient Greek words, by the way, that are completely untranslatable, like nous. Yeah. Euristos Dios. I've got an entire book, it's like 340 pages long, trying to translate the one Greek word ananke. And of course, it keeps calling it necessity, but it tries to define it because it's used this. Some of these words are completely untranslatable. Anyway, getting back to what the Euristos Dios is, we're talking about the uncaused causation for embodiment. There is no original sin. There is no first cause. We're talking about the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. This is the transcendent principle of avidya. Or that's Pali, the Sanskrit is avidya, same term by the way, is translated as ignorance. But every knuckle-dragging moron out there in both India and all Buddhist world, that just means ignorance, you know? That means you're just ignorant of what you are. Of course, they deny the soul, which is completely not doctrinal, non-doctrinal. It's like, no, that's not what avidya means. That's what nescience or vijnana means. It means the corporeal, consubstantial ignorance of the embodied persona non grata. Completely clueless. Avidya is literally no different than saying illumination. When you say illumination, you mean light. No, it's a very fine nuance there. When I say illumination, I mean the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. As the folks that wrote so many Latin texts, they say, well, the nature of the good is to do good. It's like, well, we're talking about the same thing, the principle and the attribute. The nature of light is to illuminate. Well, you're talking about principle and attribute, which are not two things, they're one thing. That's the reason why the first two numbers of the Fibonacci sequence are 1 and 1. Principle and attribute, which are one thing. By the way, the ancient Greeks also said that 1 was not a number. Like, what's the first number? 1? No. From the premise of ancient Greek metaphysicians and Platonists, 1 was not a number. 1 was the principle. It's very important. What's the first number? 1. No, it's not a number. It's a principle. It's a principle upon which everything else is founded. 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7, 8, blah, blah, blah. 1 is not a number. From the premise of the metaphysicians. And this is, of course, the way it should be. Principle and attribute. There is nothing that you can think of, nor could you think of anything. And I challenge you, by the way. You can't even dream up something imaginary that doesn't have at least one. Everything has like a million attributes. So this battery, it's made out of copper, lead, this and that. It's got a million attributes, right? You get to the absolute, it's got at least one attribute. The attribute of the absolute is also what the absolute is. But you cannot think up anything, real or imaginary, that doesn't have like a billion attributes, much less no attributes. It is completely impossible, literally. And this is actually quite funny as a mind puzzle. Nobody on this earth or in any world in the entire universe can imagine. It's completely impossible. You can't even dream up something imaginary even, much less something real, that has no attributes. It is 100% effing impossible. I give $1 million out there to anybody that can even think up something that has no attributes. It's not even possible. It's completely impossible. Literally, if you told someone to dream up, a three-headed purple moon monster. I mean, people could dream up anything. They could immediately picture a three-headed purple moon monster in there. Human imagination can think up anything. Think up something completely radical. This is, of course, how we get science fiction films, right? But nobody in any world in the universe can think of something that has no attributes. It is impossible. So anyway, that's the extrinsic attribute of the absolute. But it does not mean ignorance. Sure it does. This is what avidya or avidya means. No, it does not mean that. No. Well, that's how it's translated. I got my Sanskrit English dictionary right here. It's not what it means. This is a distinction with a difference, not a distinction without a difference. So, this is a really important hardcore point of metaphysics that nobody gets. I kid you not, I crap you not, I don't have, and I got the best books in the world on metaphysics. I got the best. There's not a single author throughout all of history that has been able to really perfectly plumb the depths. Not even Sri Sankaracharya. Plotinus gets really, really close. He basically says it, but nobody gets it. And that subtle point is like the most important subtle point imaginable, but nobody gets it. To understand metaphysics, and specifically the metaphysics of monism, which is the only correct metaphysics of the world, you know, it's the most accurate, most logical, the only one that follows Occam's razor, the only one that is purely full of wisdom, full of accuracy, is monism. And you can never understand Platonian emanationism without understanding the principle of the extrinsic attribute of the absolute, which is inseparable from the principle itself. They're one and the same thing. Avidya, I'm looking at this lens while I say this, avidya does not mean ignorance. You can translate it any way you want, but it puts it plants a seed of false understanding in the minds of stupid people, even people of wisdom. Well, there's got to be a first cause, original sin, and no, there isn't one. Well, how's that possible? That's where all religions F up. They F the big, they screw the pooch, as we say. First cause, original sin, is original sin of humanity. We're all living in payment for that original sin. Like, there's no such thing as original sin. Don't give me that crap. Sure, that's the metaphysics, or the belief system. It's not metaphysics at all. It's the belief system of ignorant humanity. Yeah. And it's okay to be ignorant up to the extent in where which you're trying to solve that ignorance. But most people say, that's what I believe and I'm sticking to it. People before me believe that. I'm going to believe it too because that's what I believe. And if you don't believe what I believe, I'm going to kick your ass, boy. That is why everybody's killing each other. You don't believe what I believe, boy. That's why I'm going to end you. I believe. Whatever follows after those words is always ignorance, stupidity, and suffering and hell. I believe. Do you believe like I believe? I believe it. Do you believe it? If you don't believe it, I'm going to kick your butt. Humanity is completely unevolved. You human beings are really something else. You human beings are slightly strange. By slightly strange, I mean intellectually unevolved. Take that as you will. I don't like you. I'm going to downvote this video because you made fun of humanity. Yes, but the real question is, was I right? Was I accurate, succinct, logical, and intelligent in my analysis of humanity? And the answer is, of course, yes.